This is TLV1.
TLV1 Radio.
Great mixture.
I like Tel Aviv.
This is still V1.
This is
Tel Aviv is a beautiful city.
Great city, great radio.
TLV1.
This is TLV1.
From the TLV1 studios in Tel Aviv, Israel, it's Louis Live! That's just me, Ari Louis. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is well. This is Louis Live on TLV1.fm. You can, of course, follow the station on Twitter at TLV1.fm. We have a great show tonight. We're going to discuss the Israel national soccer team versus the Mexican national soccer team. That game took place on Tuesday. That was a friendly. We'll discuss also Malcolm Glazer's passing with the BBC's Andy May, Scott Neiss from Israel Lacrosse, and much more. But we're going to get things started with a little boxing talk. Last week, we discussed Yuri Foreman's sudden retirement from the sport of boxing. I got a lot of messages and emails wanting to talk more about this subject. So on the line right now, the author of A Cuban Boxer's Journey, Guillermo Redondo, from Castro's Trader to American Champion. It's our boxing expert and boxing correspondent, Brynn, Jonathan Butler. Brynn, welcome back to Louis Live.
Thanks so much for having me.
So let's get started. Yuri was supposed to fight this weekend on a very big card, Sergio Martinez versus Miguel Cotto. That would have kind of put Yuri back on top of things, a lot of eyeballs watching him fight. He retires about a week and a half before the fight, signing management. Now, you followed boxing for a long time. Have you ever seen a boxer do this?
No, it's a pretty dramatic move that's definitely going to make, if he wants to pick up his career after this, it's going to be pretty challenging. Promoters don't appreciate this kind of action. So, yeah, it's a drastic move.
Now, that would indicate, I just discussed this last week, I mean, boxing is a very shady sport. There's a lot of weird things going on. For a boxer to quit like this all of a sudden, and he cited his management as the reason why, would tell you that that must be a pretty bad manager or a pretty bad deal, correct?
I mean, possibly, or just maybe, this is a guy who hasn't fought in, I think, since November of 2013. Who knows where he's at with the sport of boxing and where his, how ambivalent he is about stepping into the glare of a place like Madison Square Garden with a big, pay-per-view. So could be the management, could be some other stuff that's going on behind the scenes with him personally as well. But certainly the corruption of boxing is not a fantasy. So I guess we're going to have to see how it sort of pans out, as details emerge.
Well, it is an interesting point you bring up because he will be 35 in a few months, and he seems to be past his prime. So you're saying it's possible he used his manager as an excuse to just retire when really he just kind of wanted to retire all along. That's a possibility.
It's certainly a possibility. I've seen it many times where a fighter will blame a trainer or, blame management, and something entirely different is going on behind the scenes, where they just look for sort of a convenient peg to let the press hang their hat on. I'm not saying that's definitely the case with him, but it's always a possibility. I mean, these injuries that are happening with fighters, Sergio Martinez said that in his last fight he came in with some serious knee problems and hand problems developed and all of that. So there's just so much pressure leading up to a fight, and these guys have to just destroy their bodies to get into shape in the first place. So it's really unlike all other sports in that respect, I think.
Now, you've covered, again, boxing for a long time, as we talked about. We know, let's say, Don King has had some bad management issues, obviously. Was there ever close to a time where Mike Tyson said, well, I'm just going to retire because you're screwing me over on the money issue? Did that ever happen, or with any other fighter?
Well, no, I think because it has to go the other direction, doesn't it? If they don't have any money, they have nowhere else to go to make money. So they have to go back to these people and deal with them. And they try to, align themselves with other management. Tyson left the first group that got him the massive HBO deal in the first place. He abandoned them at the first opportunity, sued them to be free of his contract, and then signed with Don King. And after that was done, he sued Don King for that $100 million sum that I think he only got a fraction of. But if that's Mike Tyson, you can imagine that all the fighters who are not making Mike Tyson type money are in an even more precarious situation in terms of negotiating their own deals and getting ripped off. The most common thing I've seen in boxing is people will, and Don King seems to understand this better than anybody, is any fighter will take $1,000 today versus $1 million next week, and they brutally suffer for it.
And why is that? Why would they want $1,000 now as opposed to $1 million in a week from now?
I think primarily because these fighters are coming from abject poverty, and it's just that sense that it's not real to them if it's in the future. Tyson had a pension plan that was set up for him where money was set aside to look after him in his retirement so that he wouldn't have to work after his career was over. He dissolved that at the first opportunity so he could spend it. And I just think for these guys, I think they have a pretty pessimistic outlook based on all the great fighters of the past who raked in the most money ended up destitute. There was an article that came out recently about Floyd Mayweather saying that at his current spending, he'll be broke within 6 years, which is just, unfathomable how much money is being generated by, Floyd's fights. And yet still, I think the common thing is whatever level these guys are at in terms of their earning power, they up their spending to accommodate it as this kind of show of faith that the career is just going to keep going and going and going, and there'll be more big paydays. And the last person to know that they're really shot usually is the fighter themselves.
Wow. Well, we're big fans of Yuri. We certainly hope he's not going broke. He has not had a lot of big paydays. He did make about $500,000 4 years ago in Yankee Stadium, and that was the fight he tore his ACL. How common is it that a fighter has a big injury like tearing an ACL and then comes back partly because they have to or for some other reason?
Well, I think he's managed his career very well. He was not a big knockout type fighter, but to have that fight with Cotto at Yankee Stadium, the new Yankee Stadium, and to fight as bravely as he did, he wasn't your typical get on pay-per-view type fighter based on, I think he only had 9 knockouts out of 32 career victories. So that leads me to believe he might be a little different than most of the fighters in terms of looking after his finances. I know, like with Dimitri Salita, he's not broke. I mean, he's now promoting some fights and seems to have really looked after himself, and his career was unbelievably well managed in terms of the opponents that were selected. And kind of protecting him along the way. He wasn't the most powerful guy out there, but I mean that's what these guys, the management, that's their job. And going back to Mike Tyson again, Mike Tyson was incredibly well managed with the opponents that were picked for them, and I think in a crucial way that might be the most important job a manager has is the picking of those opponents to showcase their fighters and look after them so that they can make a big payday like he got against Cotto.
All right, Brynn, we're at the end of this segment, but I want you to give a plug for your book. Where can people pick it up? And, of course, the title, please.
Yeah, the book is called A Cuban Boxer's Journey from Castro's Traitor to American Champion, and it's available where all books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It'll be on iTunes with Apple. And, it's coming out on June 3rd. And, I'm excited to allow people to have a chance to sort of discover and explore Rigondeaux's journey. Abandoning Cuba as a traitor and making his way to a world championship here in New York at Radio City Music Hall against Nonito Donaire, and a lot of stuff that happened in between. I think it makes for a pretty good little page-turner. And
I'm in the book, too, so that's obviously a good thing.
And that's the highlight of the book. You're actually on the cover of the book. I haven't released the official cover yet. All right.
Look forward to that. All right, Brynn, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for the time, and we'll certainly be in touch. Be well there.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Sure. All right, Brynn Jonathan Butler, everyone. Quick break. On the other side from Israel Hockey, Josh Greenberg. This is Louis Live on TLV1. Okay, back here on Lewis Live on TLV1. Great music there. All my music is courtesy of Tomer Gershman, so thanks to Tomer for making all my music. And, of course, producing with me tonight is Lior Pedleg. We're going to switch gears from our first segment of boxing to little hockey. On the line right now from Israel Hockey is Josh Greenberg. Josh, how you doing out there?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for being on the program. Last Friday, there was a championship that was played in Cologne, the Ice Peaks Arena. Tell us... before we get to who won, tell us about the crowd atmosphere and tell us a bit about the players and their playing level.
Well, lots of advertising was done for this game because it was a championship, so the place was packed. I want to say there was about 1,000 people in attendance, and it was good fun for all. The Rishon team is a bunch of the older players of the Israeli Hockey League, and they have 2 or 3 younger guys who are the core members of their team, and the Kfar Saba is a bunch of under 20 guys, up-and-comers in Israel hockey, with one really, really good player who had a great tournament at the World Championships in Serbia for the Israel under 18 team. So, yep, those are the 2 teams.
Okay, and Rishon is the one that won, and they're the back-to-back champions now. They won last year, correct?
Yeah, correct. They won last year, and they won this year 9-1.
9-1. So is that common for a title game to be that big of a blowout? It's
not common, and particularly the Cologne rink is smaller than a normal-size rink. I would put it at like 3/4 of an Olympic-size rink, like the one in Metula. So because the rink is so small, there's a lot more scoring chances, and an offensively powered team like Rishon is, they're going to bury you, and that's what they did against Kfar Saba. Was it a bit of a surprise that Rishon won, or were they the favorites going in because they were the defending champions? Given they were playing Kfar Saba, they were heavy favorites, especially because, like I said, it was in Cologne. If the game was in Metula, then who knows what could have happened, or if it was one of the northern teams like Maalot or Maccabi Metula, the game may have been different. But because this was the 5th time they've played Kfar Saba this year in Cologne, all the games for the center teams are played in Cologne. That's why the championship game was in Cologne. So therefore, it was pretty, unless Kfar Saba played the game of their lives, which obviously they didn't, there was really no chance for Kfar Saba. And what is the season like? How many games are played before we get to the playoffs and the championship? There's a 6-game regular season. The league is divided into 2 divisions, the North Division and the Center Division. 4 teams in each division. You play each team twice. That's how you get the 6 games. The top 2 in each division, the North and the Center, go into the championship group, and then the bottom 2 in each division go in the consolation group. And then you play again all the teams in your group twice for a 6-game round-robin playoffs, and then the seedings for first and second play the championship, and the third and fourth play the third place game. The consolation group does the same thing, but no final games because it's the consolation bracket. And in the consolation, for third place, Maalot beat Maccabi Metula. Is that correct? Yeah, correct. It was a much better game. Those 2 teams are pretty even, and the final standings for how the teams were seeded was pretty close. Kfar Saba narrowed out Maalot by 1 point, so it was pretty close how they got there. Rishon had about 11 points, so they were the clear favorites. But pretty much the teams were even, except when it comes to games in Cologne, where it's Rishon plays very well in the smaller rink, and that's where they got most of their wins. We'll speak with Josh Greenberg from Israel Hockey. Now, Josh, tell us about the skill level of these players. Are these post-college, post-high school? You're talking about some older players. What level are they at skill-wise? The skill level ranges all over the place. I mean, you have half of the national team members playing this league. The other half are North American players. So you have some really good, talented players. There's also many new immigrants coming to this country, and they've played hockey in either Canada or Russia or the States, and they've played either college hockey or club hockey. So you got those types of players. You have Israelis who want to get introduced to the game, so they're learning the game on the fly, so their skill level continues to grow. So I can't put it at one specific skill level, but it's all over the place, the different types of skill levels. Also, there's people in their 40s playing in the league, so it's all over the place. But it's a lot of fun. It's pretty good hockey, at least for the Middle East. All right, and the last question we have for you, Josh, what is next? What's the next big championship, playoff game, etc. coming up? No, that was pretty much the wrap-up, at least for ice. I think roller hockey, they're having their semifinals and finals next week. They just had their quarterfinals this week. I don't know those results. They weren't posted yet. But roller hockey's finishing up, and then the teams are finishing up their practices, and then July and August, hockey's pretty much off. There's no Maccabia this year, so that unfortunately there won't be any ice until September. But come September, the next season starts, and rumors are there might be a 12-team league next year. So we'll see what happens.
All right, Josh, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you being on Louis Live tonight, and enjoy some of the downtime coming up.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me.
Sure. Be well. Josh Greenberg, everyone. Quick break. On the other side from Israel Lacrosse, Scott Neiss. This is Louis Live on TLV1. Back here on Louis Live on TLV1. Great segment so far with Brynn, Jonathan Butler, and Josh Greenberg. And now we're going to talk some Israel Lacrosse with the head of Israel Lacrosse, Scott Neiss. Scott, welcome back to Louis Live on TLV1.
Thanks, Ari. Thanks for having me.
Now, it's very exciting to have you on because we've covered lacrosse for a while in this program, and now it's the big time, the real stuff. The World Championships coming up in July in Denver. Tell us about the preparation of the Israel team going into those championships.
We're really excited. We've got about half the squad here and half the squad are pro players from the United States, and we're going to come together in Vail, Colorado. They've been training there. We've been training here, and have our training camp out in the high altitude and get right to it. And we also have a team from the U.S. coming here with Birthright, and we're excited about that. They're all active college players, so we'll have a couple exhibition games here to help us get ready for the games.
Now, tell us a bit about the championships, of how long they are and how many games you would have to win to get to the finals and this type of thing.
Yeah, it's a steep battle. We're a new country. There's 38 countries in it, and besides the top 6 Premier Division, everybody's got to play in to make it to the finals. So the actual tournament is about 10 days. We're going to train for a week before, and we'll have 3 round-robin games. If we go 3-0, we'll advance to the playoffs. And if we win 2 playoff games, we'll find ourselves in the quarterfinals. So we really have to go 5-0 to make the quarterfinals, which is the expectation. That's where we expect to be, and that's where we want to be. And we expect to put Israel Lacrosse on the map.
Now, obviously, the U.S. will put out a strong team. What are some other countries that will put out some strong teams in this tournament?
The top divisions, traditionally the top teams, USA, Canada, are almost always in the gold medal game against each other. And you have Australia, you have England, you have Japan. The Iroquois Nationals, they compete as a country. They're the originators of the game, and they compete under the flag of the Haudenosaunee, which is their tribal name. And excuse me. From there, you have Germany's always strong, Ireland, Scotland. So we'll probably see. If we're successful in a round robin, we'll probably see an Ireland in Game 4, Germany in Game 5. It's not going to be an easy road, but like I said, the goal is to make it to those playoff rounds and get into the big stadium and put ourselves in a position to hopefully perform a miracle.
All right. And the women's team, I know last year in the summer they played, I believe, in Canada. Is this the first big tournament for the men's team as far as the World Championships?
Yeah, it is. It's the first on the world stage. We played in the European Championship, and that was part of the qualification process for us. And we were happy with how we played in that. But we've really taken it to another level by adding some key positions with a couple of the pro players from the States, and the preparation for this team I think is on another level. So being our first world event, the exposure that this tournament gets compared to a European Championship, with television, with big crowds, with just the presence of USA and Canada, it really it's the world stage, and we're very excited about it.
And tell us about the crowds. What type of stadium will you guys be playing at, and how many people do you expect to watch you guys play and watch the finals of this tournament?
We're as far as our supporters, we're hoping to have about 200-300 there with friends, family. We have Masters teams coming out of Jewish American former college players at 40+, 50+, playing for us. So we've got quite a community out there, and we're proud of that. The facility is amazing. It's Dick's Sporting Goods Park, which is the home of the Major League Soccer's Colorado Rapids, I think it's called. But they have the main stadium, which is about 20,000 seats, and then there's a smaller side stadium, which is 4,000 or 5,000, and it's just littered with fields. There's 20-25 fields there. So it's cool. There'll be 3 or 4 or 5 games going on at once. Countries like Uganda and Latvia and Ireland, and really from all over the globe. Our first couple of games will be on those side fields where it's bleacher seating for under 1,000, and then as we progress, we'll work our way in. But I think we looked at it, if everything goes right, and that's a big if. We could be in the semifinals against USA, at USA, in the big 20,000 seat stadium, and that would just be an amazing opportunity to put us on the global stage and showcase Israel lacrosse.
That'd be tremendous. Again, speaking with Scott Neiss from Israel Lacrosse. And Scott, what about TV watching? Because we talked about people at the stands. Is this will be on certain TV channels? People can watch it. Yeah, the whole tournament's on the ESPN family of networks. So, wow. Certain games are on ESPN International, so they'll be shown back here. ESPN3 online, and there's web access, I believe, for the games that aren't on the ESPN3 for whatever reason. And we're working to try to get our games specifically on TV here. So we'll have an update on that shortly, but that's some exciting news coming down the pipeline. So oh, yeah.
All our youth players and our community here can watch it live and support us.
And I'm curious, of course, because we always talk about this. This is a Jewish show, so the money issue. You have all these players flying out to Colorado for the summer. How does the financing work for all that?
It's been a hustle. It's been we sponsored everybody's hotels, everybody's meals, everybody's ground transport, uniforms, and a whole lot of apparel, so the guys feel comfortable and good. Everyone's picked up their own flights, and we've done a lot of fundraising initiatives. We just did an apparel fundraiser, and we sold a lot of stuff. And there's on all our roster pages, you can donate by raffle tickets. It's really been a hustle on every level. The small level, the large level, from selling T-shirts to selling raffle tickets to trying to find the bigger sponsors. So it's coming together, but as you know, it's scary. It's we don't get government funding yet, and it's been cobbled together by a lot of passion, really.
All right, and certainly the top of the list of all that passion is yourself, Scott. Thank you so much for being on the show tonight, and great news. We'll see how Israel does. Hopefully they'll be playing in front of a 20,000 people stadium. That'd be some good stuff there.
Definitely. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Be well. Scott Neiss, everybody. Quick break. On the other side from the BBC, Andy May. This is Louis Live on TLV1. All right, back here on Louis Live on TLV1. Great show we had so far. Brynn, Jonathan Butler, Josh Greenberg, Scott Neiss. And now we're going to switch gears a bit and talk about soccer. Of course, sad day a few days ago. Malcolm Glazer, his passing, very generous man, influential man. And on the line to talk about his legacy from the BBC, Mr. Andy May. Andy, welcome back to Louis Live here on TLV1.
Great to speak to you. How are you?
Doing wonderful, and obviously a sad day for the world of soccer. Mr. Glazer, a tremendous man, not just a successful man, but very charitable. And I just wanted you to talk a bit about that for our listeners, about the charity he did to a lot of people out there.
Yeah, it was something that not a lot of people are that aware of, really, in the United Kingdom. Certainly Manchester United fans, well, they either aren't aware of it or choose to ignore it. But I think he actually did quite a lot, didn't he, in the US with charity and giving money away, which was obviously well received and great to see somebody doing. But yeah, I can tell you for sure that living in the UK and working in the UK, it's not something really many people are aware of.
I mean, in the United States, he established the Glazer Family Foundation in 1999. He also gave millions to the Glazer's Children Museum. But in the United Kingdom, was he somewhat hated because Manchester United is not always the most popular team? What was the feelings in that regard?
hate is a horrible word, but sadly, honestly, it's probably true with a lot of Manchester United fans. Other football fans don't really care. They don't care who owns another club, and he didn't do anything bad at all. He actually was very successful, to be honest, as an owner of Manchester United. They won the Champions League under his tenure. They won multiple Premier League titles, other trophies as well. So he did a great job. Other fans were probably annoyed because he was doing so well, but Manchester United fans, on the whole, if you take the majority of them, did not like him, basically because of the way he bought the club. It was very unique, and it still is unique, because a club of Manchester United's size do not get bought by somebody who buys the club using loans, essentially, and those loans, controversially at the time when he bought the club, were secured against the club's assets, so the stadium, the players, other property, and various things. So it was very controversial at the time, very unique, and still is, because if you look at Liverpool being taken over by American owners a few years ago, and Aston Villa as well with Randy Lerner, you've got the Asian ownership of teams like Manchester City, Roman Abramovich at Chelsea. That's all cash. That those owners come in, they pay cash, they buy the club with their own money. But Manchester United was very different, so it was a very unique thing at the time, and I still think it is now. And I think the other day I looked into this, and the debt that United still have is almost £400 million. So it's not exactly a small amount of cash, Ari.
Going to speak with Andy May from the BBC. What about his legacy in regards to being a hands-on owner? Was he there attending a lot of the games? Did he have a relationship with the players, the fans, etc.? Tell us a bit about that.
Again, it's a very bizarre instance, really. He never, ever visited Old Trafford. He took over the club in, 2005. So 9 years, he was involved in the club. Of course, in the last few years, he's not technically been the owner of Manchester United. It's his two sons who actually run the company that own the 90% outside of the 10% that's owned on the floated on the New York Stock Exchange. So he's not actually been owner in the last few seasons, but he's never, ever, ever in his time visited the stadium, which is remarkable, because I'm sure if you or I owned Manchester United, we'd be there every week, wouldn't we? We'd be sitting in the best seat, we'd be visiting the locker room before and after the game, and probably even trying to play, but he never did any of that, so it was really strange.
That is weird. Was it perhaps because he's an American and maybe it didn't mean as much to him? Was that part of it? Also, how did British people feel about an American coming in and buying a team that was so important to England?
I don't think anybody ever thought it was a bad thing that he was an American or a foreigner. I don't think people really care now, because it's so common in football to have foreign ownership. Not UK-based people owning Premier League clubs. I think over half of the current Premier League teams, or certainly the teams for the new season in August, are owned by people who aren't from or even live in the UK. So it's not unusual. I don't think anybody really cares about that. But it was very strange for people to obviously think about the fact that this guy never ever came. So I think that kind of went down badly with Manchester United fans. But it was always a business deal, wasn't it, for Malcolm Glazer? He didn't buy Manchester United because he was a fan. He didn't watch them when he was a kid growing up, in the 30s, 40s, or whatever. He didn't buy the club for sentimental reasons. He probably couldn't even ever have told you the starting 11. He bought it as a business deal, and it was a great business deal, because although they have 400 million of debt, they've used the club to pay off probably another 350 million UK sterling. So they actually have paid off half of what they had to borrow to buy the club. So it has been a great business deal, and Manchester United still, even after that disastrous season they've just had, are one of the top 5 clubs in the world. So yes, it's a disappointing thing that he's not an owner who probably cares a lot about the club and the team when he was alive, but as far as a business deal is concerned, it's a great deal.
And were fans ever upset because he also owned the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? So did the fans feel like, hey, he's dividing his time with another sports team, he's not 100% focused on our team? Did they ever feel that way?
No. It was all the only ill feeling rather among Manchester United fans is because of what I've mentioned. I think Randy Lerner, the Aston Villa owner, he has interests in sport in the US as well, and Villa fans don't really care. You know, if he's there every once in a while supporting the team and putting money forward, more to the point for the manager Paul Lambert to sign players, that's all that matters. So no, I don't think Manchester United fans were ever bothered about the fact that he had interests elsewhere in sport. It can be a good thing in a way, because it shows you kind of know what you're doing. You're not just coming in as a car dealer buying a football club. If you own another sports club, and particularly a massive sports club in the US, where obviously the market is huge, then it's probably only a good thing, because you kind of know what you're doing in the sports arena.
All right, last question we have for Andy. Is there any type of ceremony or anything for Malcolm Glazer coming up, or has there been in the past few days?
It was rather strange when he passed away, because Manchester United didn't actually say anything initially, and then they put up a really, really short statement basically saying that, as Tampa Bay Buccaneers have confirmed, Malcolm Glazer has died. But there won't be any special ceremony, simply because the fans of Manchester United on the whole, as I said, for whatever reason, didn't really like him, which is obviously sad, because a guy's just died, so it's not a great time, and our thoughts are obviously with his family and friends. But I think Manchester United would just be too worried that it would actually be a bad thing if they marked it in any way. But they have mentioned it on the website, and I think Robin van Persie on social media passed on his condolences as well the other day, because Van Persie 2 years ago was obviously signed by a club owned by Malcolm's two sons. But there won't be any special service or anything like that at Manchester United. I just think, sadly, it's too risky to do anything like that, because it could just end up going horribly wrong.
All right. Andy May from the BBC, telling it like it is in regards to Malcolm Glazer's passing. Andy, thank you so much for your time today. Be well out there.
My pleasure, mate. My pleasure.
Thank you so much. Andy May, everyone, from the BBC. Quick break, and we'll have more Louis Live after this. All right, back here on Louis Live on TLV1. Once again, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at TLV1.fm. And if you want to email me personally, that's arilouisshow@hotmail.com, arilouisshow@hotmail.com. We just spoke about Malcolm Glazer in the last segment. We're going to stick with soccer, also known as football, with a good friend of the program from the Reforma in Mexico, Carlos Kramerman. Carlos, welcome back to Louis Live on TLV1.
Hello, how are you?
Doing great, and we're so happy to have you on, because Israel had a big game in Mexico in front of 100,000 people at Azteca against the Mexican national team. That didn't go so good for Israel, went good for Mexico. Tell us what happened in that friendly game.
Well, it was, first of all, it was like a big party. It was a goodbye party for the Mexican team that will go to the World Cup in a few days. And it was also a little a little party for the Jewish community in Mexico. That there were many Jews in the stadium because they want to. It was like a great event to have the Israel team in Mexico. So it was very nice. In the first half, the Israeli team, it was good. It was maybe better than we think it will be. The Mexican team, it was a little bit, how do you say, not so good like the Mexican people also would want to see them. But it was a great atmosphere, and maybe Israel will do better in the score if the goalie don't make two big mistakes that were the two first goals of Mexico.
All right, so it sounded like it was more the goalie's problem for Israel, and that was the number one reason why they lost.
Yes, the score was 3-0, and the first two goals of the Mexican team, they were mistakes of the Israeli goalie. It was a shame because the team is doing great. It was difficult for them because they arrived to Mexico City just one night before the game, and they are not used to the high of Mexico City.
So traveling can obviously have an effect, especially if they're going in only a day before. In the future, if Israel's going to play a place so far away, they should probably get in a few days earlier, correct?
Correct. I think that will be necessary. But we have to understand that it was also a friendly game. So the atmosphere and the needs are different.
Now, one of the biggest parts and the biggest stories here in Israel, at least, was Yossi Benayoun, because he broke the record for the most amount of games played on the Israel national team. Were Mexican fans aware of that by chance, and was that talked about at all in Mexico?
No. The Mexican media and the Mexican people that is familiar with the international soccer, with European soccer, was waiting for him because he's the most famous Israeli player right now. But the fact that he didn't play in the first half lost a little attention. That you understand me?
Oh, yeah. So that is strange that he broke the record but yet did not play in the first half, and that certainly could take some of the steam away from the record being broken.
Exactly. Yeah, we didn't understand why, because he was like the star of the Israeli team, the interest people to see, but the coach decided that, and maybe they have their reasons. We don't know, but that's what happened.
And there were approximately 100,000 people at the stadium, correct?
Yes, correct. In fact, it's 104,000. It's one of the three biggest stadiums in the world, and of course it will be. We expect to be full because, it's in Mexico, soccer is very, very popular, and it was the last game of the team before the World Cup.
Was that part of the reason why? I mean, I know it's popular, but to have that many people come in for a friendly does seem high, but part of that was because it's the last game before the World Cup for the Mexican team, correct?
Exactly. In Mexico, it's like a tradition since '94, the last World Cups, that they made a goodbye game in this stadium, in the Azteca Stadium, that is the biggest in. So it's like a tradition, so all the fans want to be there.
And tell us how Mexico you think will do in the World Cup. I know their group is a little bit competitive. They're going to have a couple of tough games. Tell us a bit about it. I understand they're in Group A for the World Cup, so tell us about their chances.
I think they have good chances. I think they have a similar team like Croatia. So I think the first place of that group, it will be for Brazil. There's no question about it.
Right.
They are the host, and they are a very good team. And the second place, it will be Croatia and Mexico. All depends what happened in the game Mexico against Croatia, because we think that the other team, that is Cameroon, it's not in a good time now. So all depends the game Mexico-Croatia. I think that the team that will win that game will be in the second round.
All right.
with Brazil.
So there you have it. And I'll tell you, Carlos, I said this the last time you were on. We're going to somewhat root for Mexico here in Israel because since our team's not in it and we have this relationship with you and the Mexican team, you're going to have to win for us vicariously. We're going to have to look to your team to get our enjoyment. So good luck to your team in the World Cup. And as always, it's a pleasure to have you on a program on Louis Live.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure also for me talking with you. I hope we can talk later in other things, and then it's a pleasure for me again, and shalom, everybody.
Absolutely. We'll have you throughout the World Cup to discuss more. Carlos, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Carlos Grayman from the Reforma, everyone. Quick break. On the other side, Israel's top comedian to discuss the NBA Finals. That's Benjy Levit. This is Louis Live on TLV1. All right, back here on Louis Live. Had a great show so far. Brynn, Jonathan Butler, Josh Greenberg, Scott Neiss, Carlos Grayman, Andy May. And we're going to cap it off in style. On the line right now is Israel's best comedian, Benjy Levit. Benjy, how you doing out there?
Oh, stop it. You can't call me that. That's not true.
Hey, what'd you think of the Limp Bizkit music we brought into you? That's your type of music, right? You like to break stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, this is a family radio show. I don't know why we have that music. But anyways, you can talk to Tomer Gershon about that. Let's go to the NBA Finals. Now, you're from Dallas, and there's a San Antonio team in it called the Spurs. How does that make you feel? Are you happy they're representing Texas or mad because your guys aren't in there?
You know what? I think the older I get, I've talked about this before. Maybe it's living in Israel that's maybe put things in perspective. But I don't know. I'm not like them. I just woke up from a nap. Can we bring me in with music again?
Okay, can we lift the music?
I'm happy for the Spurs. You know what? I'm too old to give a shit about. I just say a bad word. I'm too old to care about rivalries. I mean, the Spurs are like they're got to be the most underappreciated franchise in our lifetime. Ari, they're the Patriots and then some. There's nothing else like them in sports, and nobody even seems to care because they're not from New York.
Yeah, they've been the number one seed, I think, 4 years in a row, and every year no one picks them to win the championship. They always have someone else. I do want to tie a little in because this is a Jewish-Israeli show with a couple of Jewish themes in the finals. You have Tony Parker, the Frenchman, who did the Canal. That's the backwards Nazi salute. He'll be in the finals. How does that make you feel, Benjy?
I think sometimes we expect too much of our athletes. He's, the guy is not famous for his brains. He did a stupid thing. He knows how to dribble the basketball. That's about all there is to say about that, I think.
And like when he dates Eva Longoria, that's an example of him not having brains because that's not going to work out.
Exactly.
All right.
And by the way, Eva Longoria, if you're familiar with the conversion process, please call me immediately.
Oh yeah, so you'd still take up on that. Okay, and Miami, they're owned by a couple of Israelis, just so everyone knows. Mickey Arison and Renan Katz has been on my show. Do you think the Israelis will try to cause something to make sure the Heat win?
I don't know. Maybe they'll have LeBron cut in line to get to the basket. I don't know.
All right. Let's break down the series because the Spurs, in my opinion, are actually the better team this year. They have more wins on the home court, deeper bench. They have the better point guard, even if he is a little anti-Semitic. Give us your breakdown of the series. Who has the advantage?
I got to pick the Spurs. I mean, on one hand, growing up watching Michael Jordan, I think anyone who followed Jordan has a little bit of a distorted perspective because it's impossible to imagine him losing. And LeBron may be at the point where he can't lose, but I got to go with the Spurs. I mean, they're better than last year. I think the Heat are worse than last year. If you take away the greatest player on the planet, they have a guy who missed a third of the season and whose knee could buckle at any time. They have a pretty good third banana, and they have a horrible bench who are old. And, Battier, like Mike Miller last year, could step up and hit, 6 threes in a game. Ray Allen could do the same thing. But just, the Spurs could have won last year. It was a coin flip, and I got to pick them this year. I mean, when your bench is scoring 51 points last night, that could be a starting five. It's insane. I got to go with the Spurs.
What about the fact also the Heat have a disadvantage in that this is their 4th NBA Finals in a row? That's a lot of wear and tear. And believe it or not, the Heat are the oldest team in the NBA. That surprised a lot of people, but it is true. Will that have a factor in this series?
Well, if it doesn't, no, I don't think so. I mean, people always write it's easy to write the narrative. It's like the team who has a long layoff. Are they well rested or are they rusty?
Right.
It's easy to write the narrative after the fact. Where's all the wear and tear up to now? They just cruised their way to the finals. So I'm sure they can muster another bit of energy for the next 2 weeks.
And in the playoffs, I believe they've only lost twice. They lost once to the Pacers and once to the Nets. And the Spurs had
twice to the Pacers.
Excuse me, twice to the Pacers. Excuse me. The Spurs had a tougher road, especially the first round, went 7 games. That still doesn't deter your decision to pick the Spurs?
No, look, anything can happen, but I don't. The only reason to pick the
Heat
is because they've got the greatest player on the planet.
Right.
I mean, that's a pretty good reason, but look, the Heat, last year it was basically a coin flip. It came down to incredible rebound and a kick out to Allen and the shot of his life. But the Spurs have a deeper bench. They've got a better they've got home court, which would have made the difference last year. You got to think.
Right.
And the Heat are old. They don't. They're older. They're weaker. I don't know what to say. It could go either way, but I got to pick the Spurs.
Now, also, what's interesting is the funny thing how media will react one way or another. Because if LeBron James and the Heat lose, LeBron will be blamed. They'll say he's only won 2 titles, but he's lost in the finals 3 times, and he's a loser, and he'll never be Michael Jordan.
That's a bunch of junk. I don't think anyone's going to say. First of all, I don't know. That was ridiculous. That's is anyone really going to hold it against him from dragging a crappy Cavaliers team in 2007?
I'm telling you, they will, mark my words, if the Spurs win, they will say LeBron is a loser. He's lost more times in the finals than he won. People will say that.
I don't think they're going to. I think he's reached the level where he's beyond. His only base of comparison is, he's now going against Jordan.
Right.
I don't think he's going to say he's a loser. I don't think the whole thing about him being clutch is dead. I think they're going to say he's got a weaker team. I think they're going to say, okay, clearly, it's been a nice run with Miami, but he's got to move on. What's he going to do next? They're going to say, okay, it's time for him to find younger teammates. I think that's a bunch of junk. I don't see it happening.
Do you think he'll stay with Miami no matter what happens?
Look, I think they're the favorite.
I mean, there are rumors about him going back to Cleveland. There's rumors about him going to L.A. There's different things floating around out there.
Everything else, the only known commodity. I mean, look, the known commodity is Miami. Maybe, you're going with Spoelstra. You're going with Inertia. You're going with Riley. You're going with maybe Wade or still Bosch. Their ability to go out and get I don't know who, Anthony or who knows who. But what are the Lakers? They're nothing. A guy who's washed up, hasn't played in almost 2 years.
Oh, you call Kobe Bryant washed out? Wow, harsh words from Benjy Levit. The thing is, Miami does not have. They have a broken down Dwayne Wade. Chris Bosh sucks, and they don't have a bench, as you talked about. So he might look elsewhere. What about that angle? And you really think Pat Riley though can kind of talk him into staying? He's done it before. I got him there.
It's a great franchise. I'm going. I don't know. I'm going with Miami over the field.
All right.
And either that or the Haifa Fighting Maniacs.
Yeah, I knew that was coming up. I already wrote it down in the description of your segment. Now, you picked the Spurs. How many games, Benjy Levit?
I'll say 7.
All right. I feel like it'll definitely be 6 or 7 games. It's not really a stretch there. And last thing before we let you go, as being Israel's best comedian, when and where are you performing next?
Thank you, Ari, for the compliment. It is far from true. tonight at Jessica's next to Mike's Place in Tel Aviv, there's a comedy night starting at 11 p.m. Come out or check my website, benjylevit.com. I got some shows in Jerusalem in June, and hope to see you there.
All right, benjylevit.com, where the Middle East is funny. You can check out that website and check out his shows. Benjy, thank you so much for being on Louis Live on TLV1.
Thanks, man.
All right, be well. All right, folks, that's the end of our program. Great show. Thank you, everyone, for listening in. And, of course, thank you to our guest. We began the program with Brynn Jonathan Butler talking about Yuri Foreman's retirement all of a sudden due to shady management and how that is more common in boxing than you might think. We then spoke with Israel Hockey's Josh Greenberg about the championship on Friday. That championship was played in Cologne, and Rishon became back-to-back champions. We then spoke with Scott Neiss of Israel Lacrosse. The Israel Lacrosse national team will be playing in July in Denver, and will try to get on the world stage and make Israel Lacrosse get on the map. We then spoke to the BBC's Andy May about the recent passing of Malcolm Glazer, who owned two teams. He, of course, owned Manchester United, and he owned the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Our prayers are with Malcolm Glazer's family. And then we spoke with Carlos Kramerman from Mexico, from the newspaper The Reforma, about the friendly game played between Mexico and Israel. Mexico won 3-0 in a game in which Yossi Benayoun broke the record for most games played for the Israel national team, and wrapped up the broadcast with Benjy Levit breaking down the NBA Finals. He likes the San Antonio Spurs in 7 games. I like the Miami Heat in 6. Stay tuned for a lot of great programming and a lot of great stuff. But that's it for tonight. God bless and good night.